So this session will be recorded for those folks who want to watch it later. And what we're talking about today is how do we actually anchor the client in practice with us? What's the conversation that we can have with them where we get them really on board, not just for one consult or two consults, but for the entire therapeutic journey? And this isn't necessarily something that we get taught how to do in school. So much of the time at the beginning, quite honestly, we're just trying to figure out what's the remedy? What's any remedy? What question do I ask next? We're so busy just with the details of being a homeopath that it takes a while for us to be ready to navigate the details of being a practitioner. And all the stuff that we're going to talk about today is, as we have with all of these conversation series, these are the things that make the difference between I'm a homeopath who can figure out a remedy and I'm a practitioner that is actually engaging appropriately with this person while they get their remedy, while they take their remedy, while they whatever. Okay? All right. So, we weren't born as homeopaths. We came to our profession from many different backgrounds. Carolyn, you were an attorney. Janine, what was your background? You have a nursing background or a professional background? I was a computer geek. So what did you used to do before homeopathy? Can you write something in chat for us? A lot of us had these other careers that didn't exactly prepare us to be fantastic at communication around what we do. And effective communication can make or break our practice, and a lot of times there's not a lot of training in it. So our focus today, we want to talk to clients in a way that, first of all, encourages their participation and their awareness of the progress that they're making. How many of you have had times where, somebody came in and they had migraines from hell, and you give them a remedy or a couple of remedies and their migraines are completely gone. And now 3 months later or 6 months later, they're complaining that they still have their toenail fungus and you have done nothing about it. And they've totally forgotten about their migraines because that's not part of their everyday world anymore. So making sure that people are aware of progress, we want to have conversations. They totally forget. Okay, so we also want to encourage them to invest in the longer term therapeutic process. And we want to create an anticipation of improvement and leverage placebo. And I'm not talking about placebo effect where we're giving Saclac. I'm talking about a virtual placebo of therapeutic response. We know that if there's some really interesting TED Talks. I encourage you guys to go out to TED and watch every single talk that comes up around the term placebo. There's an amazing research project that was done with hotel cleaning staff. And they took two groups of gals that were cleaning hotel rooms. And with one group, they did some blood tests, they measured their weight and size, and they gave them some kind of a talk about the importance of sanitation or something. And the other group, they took the same labs, measured their weight and size, and they gave them a 15-minute talk about how doing the kind of exercise that happens just in the course of their normal work, stretching, picking up, bending, walking, all the walking that they do, that this was high quality exercise that was likely to reduce their body weight and have them be more physically fit. 15 minutes, just a little bit of information. And then after a period of time, they checked the same groups again, and the control group, everything was the same. And these groups who had just been told that what they were already doing was likely to help them had lost weight, had better muscle tone, had better blood lab values. So just the things that we say, we can create incredible benefit for our clients. So that's what this session is all about. All right, so what are we going to be doing today? We're going to talk about transitioning from what's the matter with you. And this is kind of what we get taught as homeopaths, to say to the person, how can I help you? And they tell you all the things that are wrong with them. And we want it, and a lot of times people feel bad talking about all the things that are wrong with them. They feel like they're complaining or they're uncomfortable. It's discouraging to list all the things that are wrong with them. And by helping shift from what's the matter with you to what matters to you, we completely reframe the conversation into something positive. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about selecting and prioritizing outcome and about timing. How often do people ask you, how long is this going to take? And so we're going to talk about, how do we help people in that understanding of how long is this going to take? The truth is it's going to take way longer than they want. And we have to find a way to help them understand what it is they're waiting for and the priority of that. So, tracking progress forward and bridging toward health. We want them to have a pathway that they know they're on. The bridge between this is the broken part where you are now, and this is what matters to you, our end goal. And this is the bridge that we're taking from point A to point B. And if they have that, that's where we can leverage that placebo benefit to them. So we can talk about the theory of this till the cows come home. But in reality, what you guys need is an example. How do I implement this? Show me what this really means in terms of a case. So we're going to go through two cases, Sally with migraines and Bob with bursitis. And then we're going to talk a little bit about client awareness and how people like us better and want to be part of the therapeutic process more when we can help engage them with a potential positive outcome. And then how do you do this in your own practice? So that's what we're doing for the next 52 minutes. And as you guys have questions, please pop them back into the discussion. Yeah, Carolyn's got an interesting comment here. What's the matter versus what matters to you? Brilliant. It's really useful. And she says, I usually assume what they talk about as symptoms are the priority. And sometimes I remember to ask what's the biggest priority, but not always. And it's so funny. Well, let's just go on and talk about diagnostic congruence. Because very often when you get to what matters to you, there's this whole part of the case that they didn't talk about at all. Never mentioned. Biggest part of the case, biggest priority to them, never mentioned. Might be because they don't think it's solvable. Might be because they didn't trust you enough to talk about what was the most important to them yet. So the first thing is that I want to make sure that everybody's familiar. Do you guys know the term diagnostic congruence? You may have seen it in plenty of the other conversations that I've had in the other classes. Is there anybody, should we do a quick review on what diagnostic congruence is? This comes out of a Harvard Business Review study where some researchers went to some companies that had hired consultants and they asked them two questions. Did you like the consultant? You would rate them bad, medium, or good. And did they fix the problem you hired them to fix? Did it get finished? Was there a good solution? Okay, so how well did you like them? And did they fix your problem? And what the researchers expected was that if they fixed the problem, the company would say, yes, we like them. And what they found was that there was very little correlation. What they found was if the consultant and the company agreed on what the problem was. The consultant had agreed with the company, this is the problem, and this is what the good outcome would look like. Then the company felt heard and they loved that guy or that gal. Whether they fixed the problem and finally finished it or not, didn't make any difference to the rating for the consultant. On the other hand, if the consultant didn't agree with them about the outcome, but totally solved the problem, the company didn't like them so much. So they coined this term diagnostic congruence. Congruence is a coming together. So this is where you diagnose the problem and say, this is the outcome we want, and you agree. This is where the person says it, you echo it back to them. They hear you say it. They know you heard what matters to them. That's what diagnostic congruence is. And usually this gets done at the very end of the consult. So a client comes in and I'm either doing a 1-hour focus consult because they just have bursitis of the elbow or something, and that's the way that they can get started. Or I'm doing a 2-hour full intake. And so we get to about a quarter till the end of the consult, and wherever we are at that point, we stop. At about 20 till, I've said, let's do a review of body systems. At a quarter till, I say, okay, thank you for all the information that you've shared with me. If there's more information to share, we can follow on with that at the next time, but we're almost out of time here. So I'd like to talk about how will we know if our work together is successful? And these 3 questions are what I ask. Who would you be if you were completely different? If you were completely healthy? How would you be different than now? And basically what we're asking is, how will we know if our work together is successful? Now, notice that each one of these sets up a positive expectancy. Who would you be if you're healthy? We're inviting that person who may have been sick forever and having people focused on their illness forever. And now we're inviting them to think about their health. How would you be different? Let them find something they want in the future. How would your life be without the back pain? What would it be like without the back pain? Okay? And this gives people hope. This is very different than ending the consult on, okay, well, here's the list of everything that's wrong with you. I'll see what I can do, which basically is a lot of times what we do, where we say, okay, what we've talked about is this. Okay, now I need to go away and study. And the person walks out of the consult room feeling like, God, I am so broken. So we want to change all of that. So these questions, getting diagnostic congruence, give permission for the client to have a vision, to see the healing potential. It lets them see that you think something cool can happen here. Now, what often happens at a first consult, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, what often happens is that the client in this last 10 minutes of the consult will say, well, who I would be if I was healthy is that I wouldn't have XYZ. And you're looking through your notes thinking, where the hell was that? And they never mentioned it. I wouldn't be bipolar. And you think, well, that's a relevant thing to talk about. Holy moly. Or I wouldn't have the seizures. And you think, seizures? We never talked about seizures. Or I would leave my husband. Okay. So it's whatever it is that's brand new. I used to panic when I would hear that. I would think, oh my goodness, I don't have the most important part of the case. I can't do anything. I can't function. I can't figure out a remedy because there's this information I don't know. And in actual fact, there's always more information that we don't know. So we have to start with what we understand for now, because we're not going to have all the information until the person's completely cured. And then something new will happen to them and we won't have all the information again. So we know that we're always working with a subset. Okay? So in the last 10 minutes, somebody brings something up. So what do I do with that? You echo back, wow, it sounds like this is a big thing for you. Let's note this, and that will be the first thing that we talk about when you come back. And, you know, that's on the horizon. Just be glad that it came up now. And sometimes it actually will be relevant for your materia medica differential or what you're looking at. You know, just even knowing about it might be enough. Okay? Are any of you guys doing this now with clients? Are you doing the diagnostic congruence now with your clients? I'll be sure to post the diagnostic congruence article with this document. Oh, good. Okay, Shelley. You've been doing that. You just didn't know that that was a name for it. Yeah. Okay. There's another teacher that I studied with who called it level setting expectations. So no matter what you call it, as long as it's happening, it's really useful and it forms the basis of a lot of the rest of what we're doing. So when they're telling you who they would be when they were healthy, you write each item down and you echo it back, because you are doing that diagnostic congruence, making the client company happy with the consultant. You're letting the client hear you repeat what matters to him or her. No matter how ridiculous it sounds, you write it down. So as an example, I had a woman who came to me 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, with Parkinson's. And she had had Parkinson's for 5 years. And she had a left upper quadrant tremor that was continual and painful. She had spasms in her arm, in her upper arm and shoulder and neck. She had a tremor in the lower left that wasn't as consistent as the upper left, but you know, it was continual like this. She couldn't sit at a table. She couldn't, it was very difficult. Over time, the pain reduced. Over time, the amount of tremor reduced. But when I had her first consult, I was thinking, okay, we're looking for some relief with her. When I asked her who she would be if she was healthy, she said that she had grown up ice skating and she would know. Now she couldn't ice skate because her balance wasn't good because of her left leg, but she would know our work was successful if she could ice skate again. And I remember writing it down and echoing it back to her and thinking in my mind, yeah, honey, that's never going to happen. But you know what? Last December, she got out on the ice and she ice skated every day from December through March after 5 or 6 years. So the truth is, we don't know. We don't know what the vital force can do. So no matter how ridiculous it sounds, write it down and echo it back. And also, I think it's good for us to be humble and to realize that we are not the only thing between them and that goal. Almost all of my clients are working with a team of practitioners. They've got their acupuncturist and their massage therapist and their spiritual healer and their Reiki person and their craniosacral therapist. So it's not just us. They're working with a team. So make sure that they know that you're part of their team. Here's what they want. And then set expectations. After you've got the list, you say, okay, we're going to be checking in on this in the future. Wouldn't this be fantastic when we start seeing these come true? Now, you don't ever say, this is going to happen. You say, wouldn't it be if, or some other way to phrase, we're going to watch for these things. Help the client invest. Now it gives them something they really want. This is a life they want to be part of without their suffering. So you've also got to confirm details. If this is going to be used as a benchmark and all you've got on the list is migraines, that's going to be hard to benchmark and compare. So you need to be really sure as you're taking the case that you're getting in there with all the details. How often are the migraines? On a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is the pain? How long do they last? What frequency and what time of day? What are the activities that the person can't do because of the migraines? So you want to make sure that you are getting fully developed symptoms. And if you need, for me, sometimes I think that I've asked all the questions, but then when I go to analyze the case, I realize, oh, I don't really know very much about that. I can't even repertorize that symptom because all I've got is a category of head pain. And I call them up and I say, I need a little more information about such and so. It's really important at the beginning of the process, if you're going to be successful with this client long term, you have to know exactly what the beginning position is. So the difference between saying, 3 or 6 months later, well, how are your migraines? And them saying, well, I still have them. Versus, okay, at the beginning when we started working together, you were having migraines 3 to 4 times a month. And each time you were in bed for 2 to 3 days. And there was vomiting and loss of vision. And you were missing 8 to 10 days of work a month. And so now 6 months later, how are your migraines? Oh, I have one a month that lasts 2 hours and I take Advil and I work through it. Do you see how different that is? But you can't do that unless you have the details. So you must get quantification and details in order to be able to compare later. Okay, and then you verify the congruence. You make sure after they've given you each item. So if XYZ were happening and PQR were gone, then you would feel well in your life. And sometimes they'll say, no, also this, and they'll keep adding to the list. And so after finally that you've got the list, then you say, okay, this is our working plan. And again, you set the expectations. We're going to be checking on this in the future. Tracking. I do this in my notes by having F for frequency, and then I'll have them say what the frequency is. So I'll put it in terms of hours or days or whatever. So it might say like migraine, F, and then how often, like 3 times a week. And then I equals for intensity. And then I'll put a scale of like 4 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. And so I just summarize in there. And then before we're going to talk at the end about prepping to review this, where you go back and you say, where were we at the beginning? It was this kind of pain in this location. And you have to read it back to them to tell them. Carolyn says, I have a questionnaire they fill out at the beginning, and then after 5 to 10 sessions, you have them fill it out again and rate the symptoms. Oh, wow. Good. Great. I have clients a lot of times who have things that they're not willing to put on a questionnaire because of the reproductive stuff that I have. People won't put on a questionnaire things about the fallout after an abortion, things about STDs, things about, they're kind of squiggly about it. So it might be some combination depending on what your area of practice is, but that's a really great idea. I can see that working well. Okay. So then you set expectations with the idea that in 3 months, you're going to check on this again. All right. The next concept we need is building a bridge. The client comes to us in a way that they feel broken. They're not coming to us because they love us and they want to see a homeopath. It's like when you go to buy a drill bit at Lowe's or Home Depot, it's not because you want a drill bit. It's because you want a hole in the wall. And actually, you don't even want the hole in the wall. You want the hook in the hole in the wall. And so the drill bit is just a step on the way. We are a step on the way. Yeah, Carolyn, Shelley's got a comment. She'd like to see your form. If you'd be willing to share it with us, I can post it. Okay, so client comes to us and we're the drill bit. We are just a step going along the way. And diagnostic congruence shows where's the land of the well. This sets the target that the client cares about. Now, there are times when we have stuff that we think is important that the client doesn't put on their list. And we have to be careful about not being too patriarchal. I'm in charge here and I'm going to tell you what's good for you, because that's not good care for clients. So even if we have to honestly say there's some of these things that are on your list, it's not going to be quick. It's going to take longer, but these are things that we can start with and we can work toward that. So we kind of want to help them find a bridge. All right, this diagnostic congruence lets us benchmark and lets us note progress. It also allows us to discuss how working toward greater health happens in the midst of daily life. We can talk about things like, how much sleep are you getting? How much exercise are you getting? What's the one next step you could take? You know, where we're starting to do all those additional things that Hahnemann did with his clients. And it also allows us, by doing 3-month check-ins against the diagnostic congruence, to track against known cycles. When somebody starts out with us in January and their biggest problem is heat stroke and problems with terrible, terrible aggravation from the heat of summer, then we're not going to see those symptoms until summer. And we've got a long time to build forward toward that. We may never see those symptoms again. But if they come to us in July when they're right in the middle of it, and then we work with them August, and by September we're into cooler weather, at our first 3-month diagnostic congruence, their heat issues aren't really going to be relevant. At the next one, they're not going to be relevant. At the next one, they're not going to be relevant. So we have to pay attention to these kinds of cycles as we're checking in on our bridge on the way to the well. And sometimes, you know, we're dealing with menstrual rhythms. And so we want to check in again just before or just after the next menstrual period, or the new moon, or, you know, sometimes it's somebody who has panic around final exams. It's someone who's a student in university and they just fall apart the week before exams. And so you work with them, and then you've got like 14 or 15 weeks before the next time that's likely to be an issue. So we have to look at what these rhythms are and tracking against known cycles. Okay, the last exam cycle, this was what was happening. You had projectile vomiting and now at this exam cycle, what happened? So this allows us to have clear markers on the bridge. And clients always want to know, how long is this going to take? So we can stage the work and set realistic expectations. And I usually divide into 3 stages that I talk with the clients about. The first one is fix what's broke. The second one is reestablish self-regulatory mechanisms. Basically, we'll want to get the person back into homeostasis. And if we don't do this part, if the person wants to quit right after we fix what's broke, then usually as soon as they stop doing remedies, they fall back into what's broke, because homeostasis was never able to get established. And then the third thing is building capacity. This is where we're actually helping somebody improve the quality of their health, the quality of their life, the stability of their emotions, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so the idea of how long is this going to take? The first thing is that how long is not just one thing. And we can really encourage our clients on the bridge by picking the low-hanging fruit items and setting incremental targets. This is usually taught as a strategy for working with the elderly, when there is so much going on with them that full resolution of all of it is not even likely to happen. And so we just have to do what we can with showing them this step is the next step on the bridge and the next step on the bridge. And as they start to see those things come true, they start to have more confidence in the process. All right, so let's do an example case. We have Sally with migraines, and Sally's 47 years old. And so when we ask her, who is healthy Sally? Who is she going to be if she's her completely healthy self? The first thing she says is, well, I won't have migraines. And she has migraines on the left side of her field of vision, with a scotoma, a black area where her vision is completely lost, that's about 2/3 of the size of her field of vision. It happens 3 to 4 times a month. It's about 6 hours of duration. The pain that she gets, which is an intense piercing pain that goes behind her eye, is an 8 out of 10. She vomits about half the time. Very often, she'll have these almost weekly, but they can cluster right around her period. So she might have 2 of them in the week before and during her period. So the next thing in her diagnostic congruence list is meaningful work. She absolutely hates her current job. And the next one is that she wants to have energy to get through the day. She has to take a power nap or she just can't slog through the day. She wants to be able to sleep through the night or only wake one time at night, maybe get up to pee and go back to sleep. Now she wakes all through the night. She has very fragmented sleep. She said she guesses that she doesn't sleep longer than 30 minutes and she tosses and turns. So she'll wake up, toss and turn, doze, toss and turn, wake up, be awake for a little while, fall asleep, sleep for a little while, wake up, toss and turn. And then she looks at the clock and it's 2 a.m. So that's what happened between 10 and 2. And then she'll fall asleep again for a while and look at the clock again and it's 4:15 and she knows she's got to get up at 6 and she feels like she really hasn't slept. The next thing is that she wants to be no longer anemic. She currently has a hematocrit of 32, which is just under the healthy range of 34 to 46, and she's got quite low serum iron. So she doesn't have any good iron stores. And if part of her sleep at night is restless legs, it could totally be related to the anemia. So when we look at this, when we look at her problems, what's the low-hanging fruit? What's the stuff that we are most likely to be able to help her with right away? So we can say, we're going to take her case. We're going to look at everything. We're going to look at her situation with her work, her situation with her migraines, her situation with her energy management, and her fatigue and sleep issues could be totally related to the anemia. So we're going to look at an overall picture of all of that. But what can we realistically set with her as goals? So we want to set goals for the symptoms that the client cares about, these things on our diagnostic congruence list. So we set the most achievable items, and this becomes a gentle negotiation. And if we're going to check in 3 months, then basically we're asking, what do we think can be modified within 3 months? So with Sally, what I would say is, all right, it may be that the iron issue is actually contributing to the sleep and the fatigue, and it can be a factor in migraines. It could be an underlay of all this. So we might say, we're going to get you started on ferrum phos cell salts, no matter what else she does. And we can say, okay, in 3 months, let's set a goal of having your blood lab values for your hematocrit and serum iron within normal range. 3 months is plenty of time for that change to happen. Okay? So the next goal would be, to have a goal of, okay, your migraines are gone within 3 months. I wouldn't feel so confident about that. I don't have any history yet with this client. But I want to set something. What if we could have a 30 to 50% reduction with migraines in 3 months? Maybe 30 to 50% less pain and symptoms with them, or 30 to 50% less frequent. Is that a goal that you would feel comfortable with? And so we're trying to get them to buy into a next step. We're showing them the bridge. Health and illness isn't like an on-off switch. And this is something where we are kind of planting the expectation that this is what we think is going to happen for them. So another thing that we can do is to say, hey, do you have like a Fitbit or something on your phone where you can track sleep with a device? You just set it on your bed and it tells you how many hours are fragmented sleep and how many hours are normal sleep. And basically, we're just having a look-see to what's happening here. We're engaging Sally in the therapeutic process, where we say, okay, let's set this goal. How about if you start tracking it, and just the fact that she is tracking means it's likely that the symptoms are going to improve. So we can give her a symptom tracking chart, and we ask her to write down what's the longest block of uninterrupted sleep that she got that night. And so our goal within 3 months is to have at least 1 4-hour block of sleep, to not wake more than, say, 2 to 3 times a night. And then if she does wake, to fall back asleep and to feel rested in the morning. And then we check in. If these were your outcomes, would that be something that you would want? We want them to see the possibilities in the land of well over the bridge. And then another thing, how about if your energy was good without a nap for 3 days a week? Now, if I was desperate and in need of help, and somebody was saying these things to me, I would think, wow, they really have a plan. This person thinks I can get better. In fact, they're going to show me, and we're going to have a way to see what's happening. So often, the homeopathic process is incredibly obscure to the client who's not familiar with homeopathy. I told you all this stuff, and now you're going to think about something, but I don't know what that is. And now you're going to give me a remedy, and I may or may not even know what a remedy is, and I may not know what to watch for, and I don't know how to tell you or tell me whether I'm getting better or not. So do you see how this draws the person into the therapeutic process? Questions about any of this? Do you guys do this now with your clients? I'll bet you guys do some of this. Wouldn't you want to have a practitioner who did this with you? I would. So let's do another example. Shelley says, I do, but it feels messy somehow. Basically, what we're doing is setting goals with somebody that then gives them an opportunity to track toward. And at the beginning, you actually have to kind of think about how you do this. How do you choose it? And that's why I've given these examples. And so before you actually start implementing it, it would be good for you to take some of your cases and pick some things that seem reasonable. Okay, so let's do another case. This is Bob, who has bursitis. He's a 38-year-old tennis player, and he can't play tennis, and this is making him miserable. He has on his right side bursting pain in the elbow, 7 out of 10. And after he uses his arm for a while, like if he's just doing things like working on the computer and picking up his cup of tea and things like that, after 4 to 6 hours, this will swell double. He hasn't been able to play tennis for 8 weeks now. His pain in this bursting pain that he has in his right elbow is a 2 or 3 out of 10 all the time, but it'll get up to a 7 out of 10 if he uses it a lot. And so he's got his arm in a sling, and he really limits the use of his right arm to limit the pain. The next thing is Bob has some serious anger management issues. And when he's in pain, he's much crankier, and he has been getting some feedback at home and at the office that he is way out of bounds. So right now he's having outbursts once or twice a week at home where he's screaming and yelling and making people miserable. And he's regretful afterwards, but mostly he feels entitled to his temper because his elbow hurts. So he's not in a very mature mindset about this, and he's creating strain at work and at home. And the next thing is that his blood pressure right now is in the 140s over the high 80s. So 145 to 149, it's usually around there, over 85 to 89, about 90% of the time. And when he wakes up in the morning, it's normal. It gets bad in the afternoon, worse mid-afternoon, maybe 2, 3, 4 o'clock. And he feels pressure in the right side of his head, like in his brain when it's high. It doesn't throb, it's just a pressure. And he's got these big swollen bags under his eyes that are worse on waking and worse when he has alcohol. And he doesn't like the way it makes him look. It makes him look way old. So this is a case that we gave some APIS to. And in this case, especially with men, they really like having concrete, specific measurable goals. So what's the low-hanging fruit there? Well, we can't say, so by the next consult, your elbow is going to be 100% better. Even though we know that might be a possibility, we're not going to put that out there. So we have to ask, what are the things the client cares about? What are the most achievable items? So this guy's interesting. What he cares most about is being able to play tennis again. And if he were able to exert like that and discharge energy, maybe he wouldn't be so cranky. But also he cares about the fact that he's getting a lot of feedback from people saying he's got these temper tantrum things going on, and that also is coming out of the pain. So the low-hanging fruit is some pain. What if the resting pain in his elbow was 0 or 1 within 2 weeks, and that gentle use of his arm without pain was there within 4 weeks, and that within 6 weeks he could practice 30 minutes max playing tennis? What if that's the goal? Do you see how there's steps, step, step for a bridge? It's sort of inviting him, oh, if you keep doing homeopathy, this is what we're heading toward. Now, we may need to renegotiate some of these dates, but we already know he's got bursitis. He's been through all the doctor's stuff. We see the lab reports. It's not broken. It's, this is an inflammatory issue that doesn't have a lot of physical tissue change. It's got swelling and inflammation. So this isn't like a long-term, let's break down a bone spur. This is something that we should be able to see shorter term. Okay, so the next thing, what about blood pressure readings in range of something around 120s, over 70s, 30% of the time after 4 weeks? And we give him a way to track. We give him a way to report it. He can put it in his phone and print out a chart, or whatever it is. We've got to figure out, does he have a cuff? Can he get one? Can we recommend one? Because let's talk about it, guys. What's the biggest risk for this guy right now? We know that blood pressures tend to be elevated with pain, more elevated with chronic pain. He's an angry, cranky guy. What's the biggest risk? That his blood pressure is going to shoot up and bad things are going to happen. He could have some kind of a cardiovascular event. He could pass out, fall down, break something else, icky things. So this has to be an important priority here. And then what about anger outbursts? Less often, less intense by 50% within 2 months. Eye swelling reduced 30 to 50% within 4 weeks. Okay, are you seeing how what we're doing is taking each of these things and basically saying, what's measurable? Give it a time frame. What can we do about it? Okay, so if we get him started on something that is a good support for the bursitis, let's say that we put him on APIS LMs. His modalities match let's say that it really looks like that. So let's get him started on APIS LMs, and let's also get him started on Crataegus tincture as a blood pressure tonic. Or Helios has a product called CCC spray. It's China, cactus, and Crataegus in like a 3X or 6X. And guys don't like things with eyedroppers. They make them feel like they're sick. But the little spray thing, You can buy it, the liquid, in a little pump spray, and they spray it in their mouth. It's like, mouthwash stuff or something. So we know that if we can get him started on something like that, where the pain is likely to reduce and we're supporting the cardiovascular system at an organ support level, we're likely to see a good outcome. APIS should help with the anger outbursts. APIS should help with the eye swelling. The truth is, these are all the things we're going to be looking at anyway to see whether or not the APIS is working. So let's just make a plan. Let's make our plan, which we know we're going to be doing inside us. Let's lay it out as a bridge for the client so that we can invite them into the journey with us. Do you see the mindset? Do you have questions about this? So one of the things we have to ask ourselves is, can you do this on the fly? Can you do it while you are sitting there with the person? I sure as heck could not for like the first year that I did it. So what I would do is say to the client, we're going to get you started on such and so. Can we arrange to talk for like 10 minutes in a couple of days? Can we talk during my morning call-in? Can we talk at the end of the day? Can we whatever? And I would go away and study the case and say, what do I think is reasonable? Can we get 25% better with this? Can we get 30% better with this? And I don't know why, but 30% better seems a lot more than 25. And clients like that 30 to 50% range. And so, what can we do? And it's much better done in live interaction, either with the person or on the phone. So one way this might work is that you see the client, and maybe you live in a little town and you're not way far away, or it's easy for the client to get to the office. And so you say, I'm going to study this. Would it be possible for you to drop by again on Thursday afternoon to pick up your remedy, to pick up the therapeutic plan? And we can talk about next steps then. And then you've got 10 minutes with them where you can do this in person. Now, I don't like to do this kind of stuff in an email or a letter because it lacks the negotiation where the person says to you, you know what? I don't care about that. I care about this. I see you can make that better, but what I care about is this. And we need to hear them. We need to get an opportunity for their input. Otherwise, it can sort of look like a homework assignment to them. And we don't want that. Then we sort of look like the non-diagnostic congruence consultant. We want to look like the person who cared about what mattered to them. So avoid doing this by a letter or by email. This is where you want to actually interact with them and agree, okay, this is our plan. And then we have to ask ourselves, how does it help us to have a roadmap? We know exactly what we're going to be checking on with the client. We've figured it out and we've got it in the chart. And we've done a careful job of quantifying the problem at the beginning, which is going to make everything easier. It now is a required part of our process. So it helps us to be more therapeutically accurate. How does it help the client? It gives them hope. It gives them buy-in, and it gives them a placebo of positive expectancy. So when we're looking at what are the client outcomes that we can do this with, what can we put on the bridge? Is there some kind of organ therapeutics opportunity, like giving ferrum phos cell salts for somebody who's anemic? That's a no-brainer. Are there normalization tasks for the organism? Can we repair some recent pathology? Somebody who had surgery and they've got a scar with a keloid on it that's hurting. Can we get them started with a little bit of low potency graphites 6X or thiocyanamide in a 4X that's going to, or silica 6X that's going to help break down that scar tissue and that discomfort? Can we reduce their reactivity? If this is somebody who's got huge emotional all over the board Can we give them maybe an intercurrent dose of anterior pituitary to quiet their emotional reactivity? Or can we get them a Bach flower formula? Can we give them one of these and say, do this 3 times a day, every day? Spray it around your bed before you go to sleep. Spray it around your desk when you start your day. You know, what is it that we can do that can help them? And how do we set a goal around any of these things? Reduced reactivity, the reactivity of a body part in pain, the reactivity of an emotional part, the reactivity of an anger outburst. What about increased functionality, like going from a non-ovulatory cycle to an ovulatory cycle? What about repair of pathology, like the keloid scar? So another thing that we can look at is major long-term life goals. Okay, so you know that you hate your job. Between now and the next time we talk, could you make a list of 5 other kinds of work that you would love to do? How can you facilitate and put on the bridge something else? Because then they see you as their ally. They're more likely to hang in with you. So major life changes also can be things like, I can no longer live alone because I am starting to have some level of dementia or forgetfulness, or I can't navigate stairs anymore, and it's not safe for me to live alone as an elder. You know, what can we break into steps in terms of goals? And then with long-term pathology, we have to ask ourselves, is this resolvable with homeopathy? I did not think that the Parkinson's was resolvable until I saw Andre Sain present a cured case of Parkinson's. And now, that was in 2014. And now I just had a follow-up with this woman, and she said that recently, briefly, her tremor came back when she had an acute illness. And she said to herself, oh, I had forgotten that. I forgot that I used to have Parkinson's. So we might have ideas about what is and isn't curable that's different than what the vital force knows that it can do. So if it's resolvable, then we've got a goal of some degree of resolution. 30% resolution, 50% resolution, 70% resolution. Or if it's not resolvable, if somebody got their hand amputated, then replacing it with another hand is not an option. But removing the phantom pain, increasing the functionality, stopping the swelling that's going on with the amputated stump, all those things are very realistic goals. And then we have to ask, is there a functional measurement that's possible? Is this thing of betterness, is it quantifiable in any way? How many times a day does it happen? How often does it happen? How intensely does it happen? Is there a lab result? Is there any way that we can have a quantifiable role to play here? Okay? These are, if you look at these things, they'll help you come up with your goals. All right, so just by building this bridge with these goals on it, there is this innate placebo effect that's very powerful for clients. Remember the thing at the beginning of our conversation today about the maids, how they lost weight and had improved muscle tone, and they were not doing anything different. They were doing the same thing they had always done, except they had this 15-minute training about how this was going to help them. Okay, so the first message is that your client hears, golly, my practitioner thinks this can happen. My practitioner knows what he or she is doing. It builds client confidence. There are times, honestly, when I take a case and I think, holy moly, I don't even have any idea where to start. And I have no idea even if I'm going to be able to help this person, and I don't feel confident at all. Doing this process helps me find the areas where progress can be made as we move into the case and the case opens up. And they feel my confidence. They'll feel your confidence. It also enrolls their participation. So We're power equivalent now. We're a team. It's not me doing a homeopathic process on them. We're doing this together. They are just as much responsible for the outcome as I am. So we also know from Peter Drucker, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So just measuring it increases the likelihood of improvement. The client gets encouraged. So you give them a symptom tracking chart and you say, okay, for this elbow bursitis pain, I want you to rate it as low, medium, or high on each of these days. And at the end of this number of weeks between now and when you come back, we're going to count how many high days you had, how many medium days you had, how many low days you had. You know what? That guy is competitive and he wants to win. And what does winning look like in this situation? More low days. So this is pulling in his own psychological need to improve and helping it with the healing process. Yeah, Shelley says, when I wrap up with our aims of treatment chat, the client perks up. They do. They like this. They feel completely drawn in. Now they're part of the process. They are no longer passive. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, the next thing is that the bridge doesn't need to cover everything. I like to have at least 3 things on the bridge, but it doesn't need to cover everything. It can cover the most pressing priorities. It should cover what matters most, something about the things that matter most to that client. And then at each consult, you have to be sure to touch on these goals. So we got 30% improvement in this. Let's say now we're looking in the next 3 weeks for another 20%. So let's see if we can get to 50% of what the original was by the time you come back. And announce to the client, overtly say to them that you're looking forward to hearing. You know, when I send an email or instructions with remedies to a client in a letter, I very often write a note that says, I'm looking forward to following up with you and hearing your progress on these symptoms. Basically, I'm saying, I'm looking forward to hearing you tell me how your walk to the land of the well is progressing. And allow the client to report it. Ask about specific measurements. Ask for quantification. Keep getting very concrete. Okay, the migraines are just as often, but they're less intense and they no longer have the visual problem. This is the kind of feedback where the vital force is talking to you and telling you, oh, I'm adjusting these symptoms. Either it's receding or I'm giving you indicators that I might need a remedy that's similar to where you are. All of this helps the client feel safely held. The grown-ups are in the room. I have somebody on the job here with me. So every 3 months, we review the full diagnostic congruence list with the client. And we consider with the client, okay, what stage are we in? Are we in the fix what's broke? Are we doing the self-regulation homeostasis thing? Are we building capacity? Oh, how much ground have we gained? And then when they see how much ground they've gained, you don't say, boy, homeopathy is fantastic, isn't it? I am a kick-ass homeopath. No, none of that. Zip it and throw that away. You absolutely want to talk with them about how well they are doing. It's not about you. So you celebrate with them. Wow, your vital force has been doing a really good job. And you have been so consistent about taking your remedy, setting the follow-ups. Look how well you've invested in your health. Those are the messages that we want to give them. If it feels self-congratulatory at all, clients are going to have a really bad reaction to that. And then we say, how much further do we have to go? Okay, we're 70% of the way there. And then at some point, we might hit that place where some of those things they don't even matter anymore. They're no longer priorities. And so we can ask, based on what matters to you now, is this list still current? And they'll say, well, this isn't even an issue anymore. Let's just get that off of there. But now there's this. So as an example, somebody who had a trauma or a fright, this was an example that I used in a class that I taught this last week, where somebody had a trauma. They had seen a car accident and saw somebody that was thrown out of the car bleeding all over the curb. And they called 911, and, you know, people got there right away and took care of it. But this vision of the person obviously broken, bleeding all over the curb, was really horrific for this client. So the first remedy that she was given was opium, and she was not able to sleep at all. So she was given ammonium valerianicum in a low potency to take every night before bed. So after the opium and after the ammonium valerianicum, the invasive pictures stopped coming into her mind, and she was able to sleep. So those huge first priorities, they were gone and done by the first follow-up. And then what comes forward? I hate my husband. He is such a jerk. You know, the first date we had, he stepped on my foot, and I have never forgotten that. And I should be paying attention. I should never have married this guy. He is a worthless bastard. And you go on and on and on, and then you listen, and finally you think, okay, I'm just going to give this gal a 200C of nitric acid and see where it goes. And then she comes back, you know, and we're measuring your discontent level each day. How much of your, you know, we set a goal for her to observe how much of her thoughts during the day are angry, resentful thoughts, and how much of her thoughts during the day are positive about things that she likes. Is it 80-20? Is it 50-50? Can we set a goal of 50-50 positive thoughts to negative thoughts? And we give her nitric acid. And a month later, she comes back and she says, you know, I don't know what happened to my husband. Maybe he's seeing a therapist or something and not telling me, but he just has turned into the nicest guy. I just remember now why I fell in love with him. And it's not that her husband's changed, it's that her nitric acid, a state that really loves carefully and deeply, but gets so disenchanted and embittered, it's changed. So now we've got to reframe the goals again. So each time we ask the client, how are you different now than back when, to help them see. So what's the takeaway from this? Go through your active cases. For any client where you do not yet have diagnostic congruence, get that taken care of. And for each client with an agreed list, practice making up goals. You don't have to implement this until you feel comfortable with it. But if you do 20 of these in 20 cases that you've seen over the last 3 months, pretty soon it's like, oh yeah, I get the hang of this. I can do this. I can make up stuff with quantification and measurement. And you can use that guideline of that earlier page, functional stuff, repair of pathology. What are the things that we can set for goals? The low-hanging fruit where we really believe homeopathy can shine. And I just want you to ask yourself, how would you feel if your practitioner was doing this for you? It enhances the client's perception of your authority as a practitioner because you are being quite proactive and you're inviting them into the therapeutic journey. It enhances their outcomes because of the placebo effect. So your clients are going to get more better doing this, even with the same remedies, than they would without doing this stuff. So there we go. Questions? Do you feel like you've got the concept of bridges? Do you feel prepared to start trying this, practicing this, laying the groundwork to do this? Getting ready, if you're not quite yet, to discuss it with a client. You can practice, maybe practice with a colleague. If you're in a study group, use this information, share this with the people in your study group. I'll post it on my website and post it in the Trinity Health Hub later today, along with the document. And it'll be posted on that CEU Today page on my Karen Allen Homeopathy website. And then you can share it with colleagues and you can practice with each other. Bring in a case and all get some good minds on it. And then be ready to track outcomes. This means that you have to do your pre-flight checklist in the morning before you see clients that day. You have to be prepared. What am I going to ask? What are our goals? You can't set up the goals and then never check in with them. Clients don't feel safely held. Okay? Any questions, guys? Anything as we're wrapping up? Okay, well, I'm glad to have shared this time. I know some of you joined late, so please feel free to go watch the replay. It'll be out there on my website for a month until we do the next session. And I just so appreciate all of you. You know, this is the end of a day, and all of you are somewhere doing whatever you're doing. And you took an hour out of your day today to invest in how can I make my clients better? How can I do my job a little better? How can I help heal them a little more? Out of the purity of your desire to do a good job, you were willing to donate your time and energy and effort, and that is laudable. So I hope that sometimes you look yourself in the mirror in the bathroom when you're brushing your teeth and say, I am a homeopathic badass. Please just give yourself, you know, a virtual high five for being willing and try hard. Homeopaths are a really sincere group of people. Okay. Shelley says, if there's any visual format for documenting, I'd love a screenshot example of that. Of which? A screenshot example of, I don't know which. This thing? What to check? The low-hanging fruit? You're going to be able to download this entire document. Anything? Okay. Yeah, you'll be able to download the whole thing as a PDF. And then please take it, share it, go take it and go teach a class with it. You know, sometimes I have people say, oh, well, I'd kind of like to use your materials for whatever. Please. Guys, I am standing on the shoulders of other people who taught me. Now, all the stuff that's in here, nobody taught me. I don't know where this came from. These are things that I started doing and I don't know why. But I am so glad to gift it to you. Do it, use it, make it your own. Find how well it works. Find how well your clients are doing. And then go teach it to other people and tell them it's your great idea as you do it well. Use your examples. Let's disseminate this. All the things that we can do to improve homeopathy's leverage and use, this is a good thing. You know, right now we're working in a world in the United States where between 2.75 and 4% of the population have ever tried homeopathy, have ever taken a vial of arnica from Whole Foods, have ever tried a Silo, and less than 20% of those have ever come to see a homeopath. If we're going to expand that, we need to be conversing about this. We need to be putting ripples in ponds that are spreading outward. And all of us can do that by sharing this information. And I just want to thank each one of you for what you're doing day by day by day to help your clients to study, to learn more, to promote homeopathy. All right, guys, I will look forward to seeing you in the next session. Take good care. Bye-bye.